Immigration agents have found a loophole to get access to local police records in Colorado.
I know they think they followed the law, and I think there might be some gray area in the law.
The Republican commissioner pushing tonight's home rule vote in Douglas County claims without evidence his opposition is funded by the Chinese Communist Party. And we have internal documents showing Governor Polis's enormous pedestrian bridge project at the Capitol will cost many millions of dollars more than what they've said. So tonight, a first on this program, we'll dedicate an entire block to a deep dive commentary on this bridge project and why I believe it will become a monument to government waste. That's tonight on Next. Colorado state law limits how local law enforcement can work with immigration agents. They found a workaround, though, with Loveland Police, where the ATF used Loveland's license plate tracking cameras to do searches for ICE. Our Spencer Soysher spoke with a state senator interested in closing that legal loophole that's large enough you can drive an ICE van through it.
The Loveland Police Department uses these flock license plate reading cameras to help catch lawbreakers. But did LPD just help the feds break Colorado law?
Colorado has a law that makes very clear our law enforcement does law enforcement and doesn't do work on behalf of immigration enforcement.
Loveland Police chooses to share its camera data with other agencies across the country. In return, LPD receives access to a database where it can search nationwide data. Earlier this year, LPD gave the ATF access to its Flock network account. And then in late April, an agent identified in a Flock audit only by A.Bro began running searches in the system under the Loveland account for ICE.
The ATF did run the search. They did not follow state law. There was nothing in the system they used to stop them. So whose fault is that? Is that ATF? Is that Flock? Is it LPD?
Democratic State Senator Janice Marchman represents Loveland.
I know they think they followed the law, and I think there might be some gray area in the law.
The ATF does not have a Flock account and admits it was running searches for ICE. But the ATF says the searches were part of investigations of violent offenders. Colorado law does allow information sharing if it's part of a criminal investigation.
When it doesn't make sense is when you see ATF has done a search for ICE, because we know that ICE enforcement is civil. And in Colorado, under our state law, it is not a crime to be undocumented.
The ATF won't identify A.Bro, but says the bro is theirs.
I was concerned.
Marchman understands the fears of ICE backdooring its way into these systems, but she doesn't blame Loveland Police.
The state legislature has to take it upon ourselves to clarify this.
She thinks there needs to be law changes, laws that prevent data from being misused and that better monitor what's being accessed.
And again, this is probably more with requiring more of Flock if they're going to do business here with public entities in Colorado.
This could have implications beyond Loveland. Agencies like Denver, Boulder, and a bunch of others around the state share access with Loveland. If ICE has access through the ATF in Loveland, it's certainly possible it could search Denver's Flock data. Kyle, I asked Loveland Police multiple times today if it still allows the ATF to use its account. Never got an answer.
Interesting. This reminds me in some ways of the case out of Mesa County that we're also covering, where you got a teenage girl who gets pulled over by a sheriff's deputy, and then word through a group chat gets to ICE, then ICE grabs the girl.
Right, and I asked the Attorney General today if he was investigating the Loveland ICE searches. He declined to answer, but said his office is investigating that Mesa County case. Senator Marchman thought both cases were very similar with the balance of how do you share important information between federal and local agencies while not breaking state law or violating anyone's civil rights.
Stuff's getting worked out in real time. Appreciate you following it, Spencer. Thank you. Folks in Douglas County are voting today on the first step toward home rule, which would give the Republican county commissioners there more power. And now the commissioner leading that effort is claiming without evidence that the Chinese Communist Party is funding the opposition in his county. The group he pointed to is run by a woman of Asian descent.
I mean, here's a nationwide, funded by China, funded by a communist organization that's actually trying to work against the people of Douglas County, having a say in local control issues.
Commissioner George Teal is making that accusation against a local political committee called No Little Kings. When I asked him for his evidence that they are funded by the Chinese Communist Party, Teal told me, quote, "Is there evidence it isn't?" The group was created by a Dougco resident. She's a cancer doctor from Highlands Ranch named Aiko Browning. Financial filings show nearly all of the $14,000 this group has raised is her own money.
I am of Japanese heritage. You know, that's not the same as China, though. And I am an American citizen. This is with my hard-earned cash that I, as a citizen, wanted to help inform our neighbors as to what's going on here.
Backers of Home Rule and Dougco have misleadingly suggested that it would allow them to opt out of controversial laws passed by the Democrats who control the state capitol. That's not true. Home Rule does not change, for instance, gun laws, abortion regulations, the minimum wage. Home Rule applies to things like zoning and how county departments work, the number of commissioners, how long they can serve. If tonight's vote passes, a Home Rule charter would go on the ballot in Dougco in November.
Severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect for Denver through 8 o'clock. Dark clouds around the area signal the arrival of another wave of showers. We think the storms with hail, rotation, and damaging winds will stay east of us, but it's not entirely calm and quiet. As radar would suggest, moisture is feeding northward out of the Four Corners area back into northeastern Colorado, and we do have a few light thunder showers around the area. The heavy storms are out east. Storms dropping 1-inch diameter hail, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts toppling trees in and around the Bennett area and also producing some heavy flooding rainfall. They've been dealing with some flash flooding issues in and around Pueblo in the last hour. The 7-day forecast does include temperatures staying kind of cooler than average, if you will. 86 degrees is the average. Tomorrow, we're looking at a high of 80 with scattered storms likely, but the severe threat is much lower. We move into Thursday with temperatures in the upper 80s and lots of sunshine, and we are back to the 90s with sunshine on Friday and Saturday. A pattern shift begins again on Sunday. Temperatures cool a bit. Storms are back in the forecast, and temperatures come back down out of the 90s about this time next week.
Plans by Senate Republicans in Washington to sell off as much as 14 million acres of public land in Colorado are on hold for the moment. Late last night, the Senate parliamentarian ruled that the land sell-off can't go inside the Republican budget reconciliation bill as written. An analysis by the Wilderness Society found more than 250 million acres would be eligible for sale, about 14 million in Colorado, including large swaths of the Arapaho, San Juan, and Rio Grande National Forests. Republicans are expected to revise this land sale proposal and try again. The giant pedestrian bridge project that the governor wants to put on the front lawn of the state capitol will cost far more than initially disclosed to the public. Internal project documents we obtained through an open records request show the project will cost $28.5 million. That's 40 to 60% more than what the state's been saying. The governor wants this bridge completed by next summer for Colorado's 150th birthday celebrations, a legacy project to be installed there at the Capitol before he finishes his last term in office. The records we obtained show the $18 to $20 million price tag being floated is just part of the cost of the bridge. That full project is far more expensive. We've also learned the state has abandoned the idea of asking the federal government for help funding the project. Options at this point include state funding, grants, and private donations from wealthy donors. In a moment here, we are going to do something unusual and devote an entire segment of this program to an examination of the governor's Legacy Bridge project, what it would do to that area of downtown, where the money might come from, and why I believe it will become a monument to government waste. And Denver's leaders are begrudgingly handing over millions more to a homeless shelter operator despite deep concerns about its work. That's next. Denver City Council is not thrilled with how the Salvation Army is running the city's homeless shelters, yet they don't think they have a better option right now. Our Angeline McCall has that.
At a Monday City Council meeting, a $4.5 million contract passed, despite ongoing concerns with the Salvation Army.
It's just very troublesome, the things that I'm hearing.
Unverified allegations of misconduct were brought by City Council members.
And until we have another safe and stable alternative place, closing this facility would create more harm than good. So tonight I will be voting in favor of this contract And I just want you all to know I'm going to be leaving with a very heavy heart.
The contract includes payment for work that's already happened at the crossroads since January, along with additional work for the rest of the year.
And so I've asked on numerous occasions if we could split the contract of the work that has already been done and then bring before us the contract to move the work forward. And unfortunately, this puts them together.
Councilmember Chantel Lewis has asked that be split into 2 separate contracts.
We should, as a city, be moving to performance-based contracts so that we don't have to ask that question. We know.
Council members also brought concerns over how problems are then reported to HOST, the city agency that oversees the All in Mile High shelters. HOST in response says the agency meets with the Salvation Army weekly, along with monitoring, audits, and inspections.
It sounds like there is some inconsistency there.
Lewis says this is another example of needing more options from providers, rather than one large nonprofit with such a big contract.
It would start with the administration to bring council members contracts in which we are not having these large conglomerates where we feel like we have to rely on them.
The director of HOST acknowledged not learning about the allegations addressed in council yesterday, and a spokesperson for HOST says those allegations were also new to the Salvation Army. HOST says there is a process for staff to fill out a critical incident report and then an investigation.
Angeline, council getting these jammed up late contracts just doesn't seem like any way to do business.
No, and that's something that HOST actually apologized for in the meeting yesterday, is for how delayed and late this contract was, because they're voting on payment for things that happened 6 months ago. And so, that's not how most contracts would work, right? And they're in a really hard place because they want the payment there for the work that's already been done for operating the shelter. But then some of them are very clear that they don't feel like this is a good partnership for the city.
Angeline McCall, thank you. Governor Polis wants a signature project before he leaves office. When we return, we'll go in depth on why his idea of a $29 million pedestrian bridge project on the front lawn of the state capitol is a huge mistake, even if the governor and his rich friends say they'll pay for it themselves. The governor of Colorado wants to build a $29 million pedestrian bridge project in front of the state capitol. This winding, snaking walkway / art installation crossing 4 lanes of traffic to Lincoln Veterans Memorial Park. I understand that Governor Polis wants a legacy project, but there is no good reason to build this, and there are so many reasons not to build it. I don't know if this monument to government waste can be stopped, but we ought to try. The public's initial reaction to the renderings of the bridge appears to be a mix of shock, disgust, and amusement. Yet the governor appears dead set on building this bridge, even if no one else wants it except him and some of his rich donor friends. I should say, I have no issue with them having power and money. I presume that they have earned both. I do have an issue with them treating Colorado's capital like it's their own personal property. The 2 big criticisms of this project I've heard so far is that it's ugly and that it's a waste of money. I'll get to those in a moment. I actually think that the best argument against the project is the fact that the governor can't come up with a good argument for it. The governor's office says this project honors our shared history, showcases local artists, and brings the community together. Well, it's bringing the community together in opposition. The preservation group Historic Denver wrote, quote, "Plowing a functionally useless bridge through a historic site serves no purpose, but does extensive damage." As for this being a $29 million outdoor art gallery, Capitol Hill United Neighbors, which represents the people who live around here, artsy types, lots of them, they oppose the project too, saying, quote, "We believe the rich and diverse stories of our state should be honored. Constructing a massive bridge does not achieve that goal." So then the governor's office pivoted to saying that it was about pedestrian safety. So we pulled the pedestrian crash data for this spot, and last year, there was 1 crash. So then the governor's office says it's about a wheelchair ramp access to the Capitol. If you think a wheelchair ramp needs to cost $29 million, the governor's got a bridge to sell you. And finally, the governor's office now says that the walkway will provide visiting school kids with a place to sit and eat their lunch at the Capitol. They have provided no good reason to permanently disfigure one of the most beautiful man-made places in Colorado. This area, from the state capitol to the Denver City and County building, is one of America's greatest examples of the City Beautiful movement. It's why Civic Center Park is a National Historic Landmark. From above, you get an even better sense of its classic architecture, its formal order and balance. and the governor wants to slap on what looks like an abandoned water slide. We've learned the city of Denver quietly rejected the state's plans for an even bigger, longer bridge that would have connected all the way to Civic Center Park. So Polis pulled the project back to just state-owned property, his land. Actually, no, our land. There are some publicly owned spaces in this state that should be off limits to pet projects. We wouldn't let somebody draw a mural on Red Rocks or open a motel inside the Mesa Verde cliff dwellings. I've heard people say that the bridge is ugly. I think that's unfair. It's only jarring to look at because it would be here in this classic historic space. I can imagine all kinds of neighborhoods in Denver where a modern-looking, winding pedestrian bridge like that would look cool, or other cities in Colorado that would love to have it in their downtown. Great, let them have it. Put it there. But I'm told there were no other locations considered and no other projects considered for this location. The governor wants his legacy project done here, and he wants it done fast, by next summer, for Colorado's 150th birthday, America's 250th. The project was unveiled at the annual Meisel dinner, suggesting it's got the support of Larry Meisel, who's a big campaign donor in Colorado. And this project is being pitched to other wealthy Coloradans, names you'd know, to get them behind the project. That explains why so many people, including city and state leaders who have concerns, are staying silent, rather than risk angering the governor and some of the richest political donors in Colorado. So I'll say it. If they build this $29 million pedestrian bridge project on the front lawn of the state capitol, it will become a monument to government waste. State legislators are dealing with their second straight year of budget cuts, and the federal government keeps shifting more and more costs to the states. Yet every day, these legislators are going to look out their window at millions of dollars they could have spent on something useful. Every time Colorado can't fund a program, people will say, well, we had that $29 million to spend on that pedestrian bridge to nowhere. It will become a symbol of Colorado's misplaced priorities and wasteful spending. Let me just add, this is still a foolish project, even if it doesn't cost taxpayers $1 more than the $1.5 million they've already spent. Because listen, there's a chance that our wealthy governor and his even richer friends could just write a check for the whole thing. So let me be clear. Making a bad idea free does not make it a good idea. We asked the governor's office to point us towards someone, anyone who supports this project. They directed us to an artist who, as it turns out, is being paid to do community outreach for the project. If you have to pay people to like your ideas, maybe they're not great ideas. Being governor comes with perks and power, but there are limits. There must be limits. Someone must be able to tell the governor and his rich friends no. No, you cannot spoil a one-of-a-kind place in Colorado with your pet project. Build the monument to your legacy somewhere other than the front lawn of the People's House. Because Governor Polis, this Capitol is your office. This is not your personal property. My goodness, all the feedback on Governor Polis's bridge project. This from Lynn. As the bridge is to be in Denver, why don't the residents get a vote on whether we want it or not? Well, because there's not money being borrowed for it, and also it's just on state land. It is not on city property. A text, Kyle, maybe you are the reason Colorado can't have nice things downtown. That pedestrian bridge looks really nice to me. We found somebody who likes the bridge, and as far as I know, they're not getting paid to say it. Barb says the bridge is not necessary and it's an embarrassing waste of money, especially in a time of serious government shortages. Hans, Kyle, thank you. First time I ever agree with you. And Kevin, way to go, showing some coldness. I didn't mean to be cold, I meant to be direct. The bridge is a disaster.